Yo, what is up, guys? It's good to see you. Just jumping on another live stream. I'm day 13 out of 14 stretch that I'm aiming for. If you're just watching this either live or catching up on it later, just a heads up of what I'm doing. I'm actually just took May as a challenge for myself to do a live stream. And originally I wanted to do it every day of the month, but I'm actually going out of town this weekend for a retreat with church and everything. And so I won't be live on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I'll probably pick this back up for the back end of the month. And so throughout it all, I will still push myself. And the idea is just being out there, being more comfortable on the camera, being able to connect with people live, interact, engage, understand how I can really support the community in a different way. So I've been honestly playing around with some different ideas and ways that I could come to the community and add value. And long term, I don't want to be doing live streaming every day. Probably too much for me to handle right now with everything else that I'm working on, which is why, it is a challenge. It's a stretch for me. But what I want to do is through this time is trial different ideas and topics and content that we can really rally behind, get everybody in the community that wants to be a part of this and understand what is most valuable to you as a community. So a few of the ideas and things that we're doing, which is more structured this week. On Monday, we had a call where I reviewed the newsletter that I wrote. So I write a weekly newsletter called The Buyer's Perspective. And I went over one of the most recent editions of that and just kind of gave a little bit more detail, my take on it, getting into the nuances that you can't really read through the newsletter itself. Then Tuesday, I guess that was yesterday. Yesterday, I did a product review, a live product review. That's the second one I've done of that. And I think this is fun because it's not just a taste test. It's not just, oh, I like this product like a typical, influencer would open up and talk about, what the functions are and how it helps me and what the taste is like. But it's a little bit more in depth regarding how me as a buyer would be reviewing that product when I was in the seat, like when I was in category reviews, or if I'm on the floor at a trade show and I'm looking at an item, what makes me like it? What draws me to that item? And then share a little bit about the actual process itself and how the category review happens, what types of information we're looking for, where data comes into it, all of the things. And then today, you're going to see a little bit more about it, but we've got Battle of the Sets. So it's cool. I've gotten a lot of really good engagement on just pictures of different various sets within the stores. So I'll just start it off with a picture of, I think it was a nut butter set, or I can't remember. Oh, it was a grab and go set. It was a grab and go beverage set at Whole Foods. I just put a picture up and said, what do you guys think? Like, what's the first reaction? And got a lot of good engagement. And then I did it a couple more times and, varying results, but it seemed to be something that you guys are all interested in. So what I did was, what I thought about doing was this idea of bringing one set, like one category, two chains, like two retailers, and putting them head to head, not against each other, but just visually speaking, they're kind of like versus, it's one versus the other. But what I want to break down is not how one wins over the other, but how they both show up for their customer profile. And are they doing a good job? Are they not? Where do I see gaps, or where am I surprised by it, and things like that. And then leaving all of this open for discussion as well. If you have questions about the category review process, or ways that retailers merchandise, all of that, I'm here to answer those questions at the same time. And then tomorrow we're going to do the first of this little mini series is buyer hotline. And that's really just a place for you to come with your questions, and I'll give you the answers. Tomorrow, I actually have a guest with me, Darren Viscount, and so I'm sure you're all familiar with him. He's going to be great to have on the show, and I'm excited for it. I've had a few conversations with him in person, and we've been connecting more, just in between shows, and just getting a chance to bring his background with not just grocery, but a lot of wellness history, and then my grocery and dairy history. Just really be able to give you guys a good understanding of what's going on and what we can do to help you in whatever situation it is. And then, like I said, I don't have anything Friday this week, and I really kind of only have those four like series as ideas. I'm open to other things too. So if you have thoughts or things that you think would be valuable from a buyer's perspective, and you want to hear more behind the scenes, feel free to hit me up. Throw it in the comments and let me know what you got on your mind. And I might make it into a series that I do long term. So today, we're going to do Battle of the Sets. Let me share my screen. So we're doing nutrition bars, and this is a recommendation from Levi, from Base Makers, and really, really interesting set here. I've never had to deal with it. I've overlooked, looked over the shoulder of the people doing it around me, and I've given some input on my opinion on certain things, but never a category that I've managed and had to do the full schematic for. So I want to let you know, I am going into this pretty much blind. Like, if you hadn't seen these pictures yet, I'm pretty much right there with you. Like, even though I was there, I took the pictures. I literally went into the stores, took the pictures. I didn't really critique it or analyze or anything like that. All of this is just coming off the cuff. We're going to dissect this together and really talk through it. And, as we go, I'll just give you the little nuances, like information or things that you should be aware of that, you might not understand if you weren't a buyer or in the category management role. So let's get right into it. So, sorry, before I actually pull up the first one, what I did notice is Winco has obviously more pack out. They focus more on multi-packs, and Market of Choice has a very tight set and a lot of variety. So what I want us to look at this, and you can kind of see in this picture here, there is 12 feet of space within each set, but how they each utilize that amount of space and what they prioritize is completely different. And it should be, I think that's a very simple call out here, is that you have Winco, who is known for being lowest price, like low price leader. That is their tagline. And then you have Market of Choice. They are very focused on a different experience. They want a different customer coming into the store, spending a little bit more money per item, and having not necessarily a bigger basket, but more money per item, and focused on the healthier, like natural products, with local as a huge highlight for Market of Choice. So as we get into these sets, let's keep that in our mind as we go in. understanding what Winco is, what they are really trying to accomplish, and same thing, market of choice. All right, so let's take a look at the first one here. This is Winco. Let me zoom in just a little bit, make that easier. All right, so this is the Winco set. Again, I did not really analyze this before, so I'm looking at it with you guys. If you're in here watching live, hit me up in the comments, like, what's the first thing that stands out to you? For me, I think the first thing that stands out to me is Cliff. You know, they have a huge block of multi-packs here, and it goes, Z bar is part of Cliff. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 times 3 shelves. So you've got 45 facings of Cliff multi-packs right there in the middle as the base, like the foundation of that set. So they're clearly leaning into Cliff. However, when you start looking at it a little bit more, one of the things that I notice is they're really big in the Cliff multi-pack, but Cliff singles, they only have, what I can tell, 2 flavors, which, well, sorry, 2 flavors of the standard. It looks like down here they've got a few of the builders. I think that is Cliff builders. Let's zoom in a little. Yeah, so they've got 3 builders and then 2 regular Cliff bars. So they're sitting at 5 individual SKUs of single bars, but have all of this space dedicated to multi-pack. Now, I don't know that customer or their strategy, and this is all just outsider view here. But usually, or at least the way we looked at it when I was doing this, was very similar to yogurt. When I had yogurt under my category, you usually have the different size or format with similar flavors so that you have like an entry point trial, and then that person can upgrade as they liked that item. They can upgrade to a multi-pack and save with a value pack. So, you know, if you were following that kind of mentality, it would be these SKUs here. These flavors would be in the singles, and if they did have more Cliff singles, I probably would have, you know, it would have been a block here that you would have made. Now, what I would say is very similar to the conversation we did about nut butters, and Safeway had a lot of really big format and multi-pack, like 2-pack of, you know, big jars of Skippy and Jif. And to me, that is the different customer. Like, they are going after a customer that is looking for value. They might buy this item somewhere else at a single bar and already know it. Like, these are proven items. So they're not necessarily looking for trial in these items that are already proven. So that would be the one thing that I understand, that even though the typical flow is you get trial with a single SKU and then upgrade them, these are proven flavors. So they are taking that and just putting it in and saying, hey, we know you like these flavors. We're going to give you the best value at it. And at the same time, they have a huge section of Barebells, Quest, Built, like right above it, right in the center. And that to me just makes me think, I mean, Barebells and Built are having a moment right now. And so that totally, to me, makes sense, where they don't have any of these multi-packs. They're building the case to figure out, is this a bar that people like? Is this something for our customer? And so I would say over the next year or so, when they go into this next review, you probably will see that they're going to have multi-packs of Barebells for maybe their top 4 or 5 SKUs. They'll probably trim down the amount of pack out, because at the same time as adding a multi-pack, you don't necessarily need as much holding power on the single, because you're trading that customer to a different item. So It's almost like a one for one, where you might go down to a single face here, still be able to stack too high, and then use that space for a multi-pack. It wouldn't necessarily go right next to it, but you use that space across, 4 or 5 SKUs. Now you have a little block that you can put that multi-pack into the set. Now, one of the things that I think is really interesting here is the pack out. Like, we all know Winco moves a ton of product. For me, even though this is the store just near my house, and it's a smaller format. It's right next to my house. So I walked over, took the picture, and I've been to their big stores and they are way different. They don't merchandise the same, like a lot more. You can kind of see it here. But if you've been into a Winco, like, they just cut the cases and throw the cases on the shelf. And this store is a little bit different. It doesn't do that quite as much. It's not as efficiency focused is what it looks like in that regard. So to me, it makes sense that if when you're looking at efficiency, especially labor and stocking the shelf, and that and a blend of how many items you're selling, this all makes sense to me. They're not necessarily throwing the whole case out and just cutting the front, but they have enough facings there that they can just slam the cases down and do it really quick, like stock the shelf really quick. Whereas when we look at Market of Choice, you're going to see stocking will just take a little bit more time because it's not as there's not as much of an air gap. There's not as much facings, so you're kind of a little bit tighter, and it can be a pain when you're like trying to slide things in delicately, not trying to knock over or mess with the other boxes. So that's kind of my first take here on this. One other call out here is they have wild chips. So it's not really a protein bar, but it's protein. And actually, I do want to say one thing that will lead us into the Market of Choice conversation when we look at that picture. But this set is not just about protein. It's not protein bar. It's energy bar or nutrition bar. I like nutrition bar as the name because there's lots of different ways that you can look at nutrition. Right now, of course, there's a lot of focus on protein, but there are a lot of bars in here that have higher fat content and not really focused on protein, but having good fats, like the RX bar. It's not in this set. I don't think they carry RX, but RX bar and Lara bar, like, they have dates in them, and they're not really as much protein, but it's more of a fill you up with the good healthy fats. And some are for carbs and things like that. So you have different occasions at which point you would want the type of bar. I don't know all of the details here and like which different sub segments there are and everything. That's where I kind of get lost because I didn't mess around with this category in depth. But let's take a look at the Market of Choice. All right. So when you compare these, this is a completely different look and feel to it. This feels a little bit, it feels hard to approach. There is a lot going on here. You have some multi-packs up at the top, not too much. So it is really more about that single bar customer. But what really is tough for me, I think they've done a pretty good job. Like, I'm checking their brand blocking, and it looks like they did pretty good job about getting the brand blocks to line up as best as they can. But even then, when you look at this, like, okay, there's a couple shelves of Kind. You've got your Lara bar, your Cliff and Luna. You got Pro Max, and you got One, Nugo, all these different brands here, and Loa. They're all nicely like put together. But this is where it goes into that conversation of like, what is the consumer, like, what's the consumption point or the purpose of the trip? And this is where it gets really tricky for anybody. Like, I don't know how anybody has made this work where you can go up and say, you know what, I need a high protein bar. Okay, I'm going to go to this section, like right here. I can clearly tell, like, oh, these are the protein bars. Or I'm looking for RX. Like, I want, something that is more fat forward. RX and Larabar are probably similar in that regard. Probably same with Kind, I guess, with, they have a lot of nuts in their product. So, um, I just see this as a huge opportunity. And I think everybody knows it. They just don't know how to solve it. Years ago, New Seasons took a pilot of how to identify this for the customer. They took a shot at how to do this, and they worked closely with one of the brands. I think it might have been Kind or Cliff. I'm not really sure, but they worked through the consumer decision tree, they subset like subcategories, all of that stuff, and figuring out which items really fit into which bucket for the purpose of the shop. And what they did was had like a floor clean down here that had a little guide, and it was color coded. So it was like yellow for kind of breakfast and healthy fats, and then like protein for after workout. And they had like cute, marketing kitschy names in it. I don't remember exactly what it was. And, in theory, it seems great. But in reality, how much do people look at the floor and actually like look at anything? Like as a customer, how much do you actually pay attention to that stuff? I think honestly, we spend, as retailers in general, we spend so much money on these marketing pieces and collateral and assets that are not even noticed by majority of the customers. And we saw that as, I don't know what the numbers were, and I wouldn't be able to share them anyway, but there was a change in sales, not in the right direction. And it was clunky. It was hard for people to understand because there would be some Kind bars over here, but then they have Kind protein over here. And so it really makes it challenging to try to do that approach. I think it's the right general idea. Like as a customer, if I'm looking for a protein bar, like where are all the protein focused bars? But in reality, like in real life, when you come up to the set, it's very hard to navigate through that when you're looking at, there's the Kind block. I would expect to find all of the Kind bars in that area for the most part. And I think that the best thing for me, like this is all just me off the cuff, but I think the best thing anybody here in this set could do as a brand is really make your tray, your caddy, be a huge banner for what it is that you are trying to sell there. Is it protein? Is it fat? Is it, satiety, whatever, satiating? I don't know how to, you get it. There are the names for each of these bars that make sense and like using the cute marketing names, but somehow calling that out, like Cliff Bar, it's already created a name for itself. People know about it, but how could you call out something, bolder like here and saying, energy bar, whatever it is that you want to call it. Sorry, I'm jumping all around with this picture, trying to get it back. So with this one, the next thing, like first thing that comes to my mind after just how, well, first I want to say it's two things at once, which is weird. It's so busy and tight and can be confusing, but at the same time, it looks clean for how they put it together. I actually think that they did a really good job with the brand blocking, and it's such a hard category to do that with. So hats off to whoever built this schematic. The other thing is it is so tight, and I did count the shelves, so I think we're at 11 here. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 shelves for this 12-foot set. Whereas Winco, we were at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 shelves. So you can clearly see the difference in pack out. When you start looking at this item, Aloha, stacking 3 high, you can get at least 2 deep, maybe a third box deep. So you're fitting 6 to 9 cases in one facing. And when you look at this set, you don't have any stacking going on. So you really just have the depth of the shelf holding that pack out for you. And a lot of items here have 2 facing. So, again, this is all got to be off data, being able to show that, hey, this is worth 2 facings, this is worth 2 facings. And again, some of it might be with the pack out and the case pack, because this tray is longer than this tray. You could probably get 3, maybe 4 on this tray on the shelf, whereas you're only going to get 1 on this one. And then because it's 2 facings, you could probably fit 1 sideways on the back. But that gets a little bit more into the operational weeds there. What I thought was interesting here was we've got the Bobos up here. We've got multi-packs. I don't know what this is. I've never seen that brand before. And then we've got date pops, like filled. I think this is Julie's, or I can't remember the name. But they've got the dates up in this section, which I thought was a little weird. I'd be curious to see how customers are finding those, and if they have any customer comments or questions and things like that. So we're wrapping up on time. I want to ask, is there any questions? Like, throw them into the chat. As we're going, I want to be able to see what's going on, and I'll answer any questions here. But yeah, for final kind of thoughts on the sets. It's one category, 2 stores, 2 customer profiles, completely different strategies. And I think the more I originally thought that the Winco set was maybe a little off with how heavy they are on the multi-packs, especially with Cliff. And when you look at it, you can kind of see how much they're putting behind that. I still think there's opportunity there. Unless they are truly moving that many units, I can almost guarantee that they're getting like 5 to 7 days a week inventory or orders. So that seems like a little bit of wasted space. But like I said before, I think right now they're doing a good job with playing into these brands that are trending. They're getting their own baseline on whether or not it's a relevant item for them. And if they can continue it next year in the set with multi-packs. So overall, I think they did pretty good. I don't have like a rating for it. I wouldn't say, for me, it's not like perfect. I think there's opportunity here, like I said, but they're doing some really good things here. And then for market of choice, I think on the flip side, they probably have some more opportunity for some multi-pack. Potentially move Bobos and get the dates out of there and then expand across the whole top, or do like a section like this with a vertical block. Something to highlight that you have better value items there in addition to the exploring and finding, new items and things like that. They have done a really good job, like I said, with the merchandising of brand blocking and keeping things together. I think the shelves are really tight, but for their volume and their goal of getting, more products out in front of people, I think that makes sense. One thing I didn't call out here, which is kind of crazy, like I know it is just more of a natural retailer thing, but how many price tags there are on everything. Like, so many sale items right now. And that can be good and bad. It is more of a natural retailer thing to have this many items on sale at the same time. I mean, you can't tell from Winco, there's no bib tags, but when you look in, you can see green tags are their sale, and then yellow is their regular price. So this one, it still has actually quite a few items on sale, but you don't really notice it as much without those bib tags. So kind of interesting dynamic. They still run sales at Winco. It's just not as often, and depending on the category, I'm sure that makes a big difference as well. All right, I don't see any questions in the chat, so I'm going to wrap it up. But I think overall, these stores did a pretty good job of meeting their customer where they're at, and I'm excited to see this change, especially in the Winco. Maybe a year from now, I'll set a calendar reminder to go take a picture and see if they've done more multi-packs with Bear Bells and Built and things like that. Anyway, guys, it was great seeing you. I will talk to you later.